All right, we are live. Welcome, baseliners.
Yes, hello, hello. Welcome to our May 25th baseline show. We just have some open office hours today where we'll just chat about what's going on with everybody. Um, so I will just start by saying, just making sure it was live. Um, we have Drew here with us today. I have not seen you on our show before, so if you'd like to give a quick intro, that'd be great.
Okay, that's
Uh,
interesting. So, uh, everyone, my name is Dhruv, as you can see, as you have heard. I work for Accenture and I am a ServiceNow architect by role. So, actually, I started studying blockchain a bit.
Wait, one
And
moment. Are we live, Yoav?
we are live with audio, but the video is just blue,
That is
which
strange.
is not how it looks on Restream. But
Hmm.
I will work.
Okay. They said the audio is good though, so they can hear us but not see us. So we can keep going in that case. Just let us know, Yoav, if we need to pause talking for a sec to.
It's a podcast, exactly. Welcome to the first ever inaugural podcast.
Yes.
The
All right.
videotape all podcasts nowadays, so
Shoot.
we're still behind.
Sorry about that, Drew. Go ahead and continue.
where was I? Yeah, I'm a ServiceNow architect at Accenture and a ServiceNow developer MVP as well. ServiceNow, and I think Taylor reached out to me for just taking an experience, man. Just a starter in that.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us today. Taylor, if there's any other context you want to give, please feel free. But would love to hear, Drew, what do you know about Baseline or how new are you to learning about the protocol?
I'm pretty like the first. I heard the baseline for the first time from Taylor itself, so I'm
Like
pretty
10 minutes
excited.
ago.
But
Yeah.
so it's
The context was just I invited him, wanted to give him some exposure. He posted an article after we connected on LinkedIn. I'm doing searching, trying to grow the community. And he posted an interesting article on blockchain. So I wanted to invite him to kind of get a different perspective on, what blockchain can do, how it can be used, specifically around the baseline protocol.
Super cool. So yeah, what are your thoughts about the protocol, or do you have any initial questions? If you'd like any more briefs and summaries on what the protocol is, or anything we can answer for you today.
I would prefer to explore it by my own a bit and then come up with questions that would make more sense. Otherwise, I will go like, what is this protocol? What does it do? Doesn't make any sense.
Yes, that makes sense. And honestly, I think a lot of new members in the community always start with those questions, even when they do dig into the docs or the existing resources, because things are pretty new. The protocol has been around for about 2 years, I think maybe 3, but standards bodies move slowly. So things are constantly being created by the week, and looking forward to hearing what questions you have as you do start exploring further.
Always good to have new fresh bodies in the baseline. Are we just staying blue this whole time, or are we just going to go with the blue and audio? By the way, my name is Mark Rimsa.
I have no idea why it's blue. I'm on Restream. I see the video and the audio. So the fact that there's only audio is pretty awesome. I don't know.
Shouldn't have gotten ready at all today. Awesome. So, all right, let's just keep chatting about what's going on. So one of the interesting developments in our community is that the main item on the roadmap, the SRI, Simple Reference Implementation, is officially being worked on by a group of core devs. Keith, do you want to tell us a little more about that and how it relates or differs to other work that's been done, or why it's needed?
Oh, I would not. Thank you. No, yeah, sure. So, we originally started, I shouldn't say just we kind of, so there's the Blip 6 project that was, the initial steps of like a monolithic test suite, surrounding like a mock baseline implementation was done. And then we're trying to move into a simple reference implementation. Anybody's welcome to join. I think there's part of the members were in the original monolithic test suite. There's extras now. And, really, we to life. So we're working on that this week. We'll meet tomorrow, Thursday, again, just to see what we've kind of come up with in terms of, these kind of Lego building blocks that you always hear people talking about in baseline that we've separated the core packages into. We're just coming up with like basic interface and stuff to kind of pitch to each other. So it's still real kind of premature in terms of the development. So again, anybody feel free to join in and just to kind of lay out what's our purpose of the simple reference implementation. So, there are really great examples that already exist in the repo. And, if I always say this so much, like if you're an advanced baseliner and you want to help like push the front of examples that are in there, I think that's great. And personally, that's part of the work that I want to do. Go and look at the examples. Maybe we push Battleship to like a new game that has more than 2 people, right? We take the logic, or we take BRI1 and we try to accomplish some kind of like componental, like test harness that Kyle was talking about in chat the other day. I think that's awesome. But we're also, as from the baseline side, we want to have there to be kind of like real stepping stones. Like if you come in and you're able to see, okay, the SRI, that's just this. It's such a simple example that it's not, it doesn't really reflect like a production implementation, right? You're just going to have 2 parties. It's not going to have the BPI interoperability or anything. It's just so simple. It's right there. You can see it. Its development is going to give us a bunch of different educational tools, videos on how to develop certain chunks, implementation guide, just all the little things, SDK that you kind of expect to, just kind of situate yourself into baseline and work your way up to those other more advanced implementations. So yeah, is that good enough? My Slack is popping
That
up
is
in my ears.
that is good enough. One question I have, as not being a super technical person, but understanding the effort that's being worked on, is how are you as a team figuring out how to break up the work or categorize it? I know you mentioned using like the existing sections with how the packages are split up and such, but like with an open source team of developers, how do you figure out how to divide and conquer?
Our team is pretty relaxed and everybody's generally really willing to do some work. So, we just kind of go around the table and see which part people are more interested in to work on, right? Do you want to work on more like, the work group component, or, like persistence, or, ZKP. And we just kind of, let people volunteer for work. It's not really a problem for us because everybody, like I said, is just so kind of cooperative, right, and relaxed about doing it. So we go around and just see what everybody's interested in, then kind of fill out the positions. And sometimes we have more than one person on one part if they're really just interested in learning that part, and other people pick up solo parts. So yeah, we don't have like an official way of doing it, but that's one of the great aspects of this team, even before, when it was monolithic test suite, is that we really don't have any trouble just kind of like filling in the spaces that need to be filled. Yeah. And really, in reality, what's going to happen is, even though we've kind of separate the initial research and work into, among either solo or duo parties, that a lot of the work is just going to end up being kind of mixed between us all, right? Because if you're working on something ZKP and maybe you don't have experience, but you want to learn, then you're going to end up coming to the person who has more experience there, and so on and so forth. So yeah, maybe we do need some more structure. Your question has made me realize that we should have more structure. Now, as we go forward, because right now it's in the beginning, once we've like defined the places where like who's doing work group, then we'll probably have more structure there and start applying like normal, I don't know, developer rules, right? Like just that we work through GitHub and whatnot. Otherwise, yeah, that's my answer to your question. Are we still blue? I still see everybody on video like just looking around like freaking out, like how do we get not blue? How do we get not blue?
Yeah,
Yes,
we're
we are
still blue.
It's okay.
I think we can attempt a solution, but it would restart the stream.
What does that mean for us? What does that mean for everything? We drop and join, and
could we join the same Zoom? Yoav?
No, it would need to be a new Zoom and probably a new stream.
still
Okay.
blue.
In that
Okay.
case, yep, let's just keep going. This is
This is
one
fair.
you listen to while you're driving.
This is gonna be
Yeah,
a full
yeah.
blue, a full blue session.
Ready,
All
relax.
right. So I know we're going to have a General Assembly coming up in 1 to 2 weeks. I think 2 weeks from now is when we'll schedule it, but then we'll give more detailed updates. But there is a lot of work happening, I would say, in the community. Things have picked up pace with specific work groups forming from the different teams. Like the one Keith was just mentioning is the SRI work group within the core devs. And then on the outreach team, it's officially picked up pace where we have different work groups focusing on their exact scope, like creating enablement and pitch materials or research, which is now resulting in a repository full of links related to technologies or use cases surrounding the baseline protocol, which is something that did not exist before and already equips new community members to fully understand or have a better understanding of what the protocol is all about. So Mark Rimza, do you want to tell us a little more about the research group and where you see some of the first outcomes of the group for the community being produced?
Yeah, the research group has some pretty exciting work going on and a lot of interesting individuals with unique interests that are pitching into the efforts going on there. Right now, we're basically crowdsourcing a lot of ideas for research centered around the baseline protocol, because the baseline protocol includes so many different technologies, ZKPs, messaging services, interesting enterprise use cases that basically take the baseline protocol, this blockchain as middleware concept that allows you to validate and synchronize business processes and all of their workflows and work steps. So we're looking at a lot of different industries like healthcare, finance, supply chain, even areas like aerospace and telecom that all have interesting needs for synchronization and verified workflows. And one of the biggest things that we see needs for at these companies is the ability to work around these new data regulations that everybody has to deal with, like GDPR, HIPAA, I think Sarbanes-Oxley and other regulations that really put a big emphasis on data privacy, and companies don't want their data leaving their systems of record. They want it to stay put, and they still want to be able to coordinate, because data sharing and coordination is the next leg in this new digital transformation that we're all experiencing. So the ability to share that data privately and collaborate with these companies is something that we know they're eager to do. And this research group is working hard to really show companies what that value is and how they can collaborate in a way that is easy to grasp and shows real tangible business benefit. And with a lot of the findings that we're trying to gather in this research group, we want to aggregate a lot of those findings and work with our enablement team to really, demonstrate this value to businesses and show them through pitch decks or materials and curated materials for different positions at companies, whether it's the CIO or a developer who really gets the technology and wants to start building it at their company before they show it to those C-suite executives that can see a business value from it, and equip those developers with some of that information to make any of their implementations that they are building on the side something that is palatable for the business units that, you know, control the purse strings to build these projects at their companies. So we're pretty happy with the progress of where things are going so far. And like I mentioned, all of the use cases that we're looking at in these industries, we have people in these different industries like telecom or supply chain who are interested in, excuse me, got a frog in my throat, interested in developing these materials. So it's great.
So yeah, I have some questions for you, but I think, are we moving over to Restream? Is that what's happening? So that people can see us? No?
I have my camera up on Restream right now, and
People
it's
can
still
see you?
blue. No,
Still-
they cannot.
It's all,
I think this is a problem with
Strange.
Restream.
it's funny,
All
it's
right.
kind of the blue, it's the Restream blue too, right?
Yeah,
They're
not
doing
bad.
some advertising.
They knew too
All right.
much.
No
Yeah.
worries. We'll just stay on here then. So yeah, Mark, that's really interesting. I think something that's always been a gap is that there are domain experts across all different industries interested in the protocol, but there are no existing materials that connect the dots on why someone in that space should be learning more about the protocol. So now as a team, we are all working towards creating those pieces. And Keith, what are your questions for Mark?
Yes, Keith, go ahead.
Well, thank you
away.
for teeing me up, Sonal. Yeah, I was just wondering, have you heard any like really cool new novel baseline implementations or brainstorm ideas that have come through the research group? I don't know if we're allowed to talk about that. I mean, if you give up other people's ideas, right? As long as you give them credit, then it'll be recorded for forever online. Anyways.
Yeah, that's a good question. If I am at liberty to say what some of those ideas are, but I do know
think
that
you can.
I can.
Yeah.
One interesting, this isn't part of the research group, but one interesting idea that we've been bouncing around with one of the members of our community in finance is the idea of baselining bank-to-bank loans. A lot of banks, they don't want to reveal the assets on their balance sheet whenever they're applying for a loan from another bank, what types of treasuries, or whether they have gold or stocks or other things backing the collateral for the loans that they're applying for. And the opportunity to baseline a process like that would allow banks to secure loans quicker by proving that they have the collateral without actually revealing it, and would increase the trading velocity and privacy for banks because they don't want to reveal these things to each other, and help them out in the process.
All right. Was that your coolest example that you've heard lately? Bank stuff?
Yeah,
Sounds
I would
pretty
say
cool, I
so.
guess.
I would say so. If you're fishing
I
for
like
another
that.
cool example, I could try and think of one.
Maybe drones.
Drones. Yeah,
Army
military
drones.
applications
I'm
are
the
great
first
for
one
baseline.
saying it here. Army drones. No.
I think what's also interesting is the relation to the enablement work group that you mentioned. It is alongside the research happening by those interested in researching. The enablement group is working on creating deliverables for different personas within the business, tech, or other spaces that make the decisions around baselining, whether it's the decision to baseline their existing products and services, or if you're the person actually implementing at the company, since the standard is open source. And according to John, it only takes 6 steps and any developer can do it. So based on the different personas who'd be interested in baseline, making sure that they're equipped with the proper deliverables for their needs. For example, where an executive would really just want to know, how much money does this save me? What are the security risks or benefits? And that level of information versus going down to different levels of granularity. So I think it's super cool that these efforts are fully in motion now. Mark Haddle, you are part of both working groups happening. What are your thoughts on the work going on or other things happening in the community?
It's okay. I'm sorry. I'm sitting here doing like 3 things at once, trying to pound out all this, different content and all this other stuff. So your original question, what are we doing as far as the work, as far as outreach?
Yeah, you're involved in the research and enablement group. So what are your thoughts on?
Yeah. Well, the big thing, what we want to do is we've actually come up with a really full-fledged idea as far as, and we've demonstrated how this is compelling, and we want to, really start to march this into, a commercialization type of environment to say, this is what it is, and this is what it can do, and this is what you are going to, benefit from. If you adopt baseline. It's okay, I've got 3 different things going on here. So, I mean, what we want to do is, find out, what are the target addressable markets? What would it take to go ahead and, get baselining? Because I've had, several people come up and say, I really love this. This is groundbreaking. This is really, has a way of addressing so many of the things that I have to deal with every day. What can I do to get baselined, with all my counterparties by next week? And so what we want to do is sit there and say, okay, well, again, we need that concise answer to that question, which we're still working on. And that's why we're kind of leaning on our technical guys to sit there and say, hey, where's the starting point? How do we get started? And if we make it as easy as possible, I mean, it won't be plug and play, but if we can make it easy as possible, or simple, shall I say, not easy, simple as possible to get started, then that really is what's going to bring baseline, into the sun. I think we've been working on this for 2 years now, and we pretty much have gotten to where we've got all the capabilities out there. Now we want to actually make them happen. There's a lot of us in there going, this is great that we're building it, but now we want to be able to, get it adopted. We want to be able to sell it. And get people, it's because we want all these testimonials that basically said, I don't remember my life before I started baselining, and I don't want to. It is the greatest thing that I ever have come up with, and I want to find the people that came up with this and give them a kiss square on the mouth. So, and I don't care, that's what we want to get to. And so, so what we want to do is really kind of create that awareness and then have those, succinct answers as to, how can we get the people baselining? So, and all of that requires communication, requires collateral to where people, that are either just casual observers can on their own, read some content that will, kind of get them thinking in their heads, well, what would it take for me to do this? Because I'm not buying any real new hardware. I'm not putting a whole bunch of, capital investment. How can I make this actually work? Because that's a big problem within our operational environment, is this out of sync data with our, counterparties, which we, syncing up is really difficult because of data privacy, or I don't want to share anything. Because I don't want anybody getting some insights as to what I may be doing, from a competitive standpoint. So, what we want to do is, get everybody, pretty much living the dream, as we would say, of baseline.
Thank you. Yeah. I think it's a great time for the community members who have either been around for a while or they're new to have a part in this work, because what's really important is asking people who are newer, what are you wondering? What do you wish you knew? Because even myself, I've been around for a little while in the community now, but if somebody asked me to concisely pitch baseline to someone and I had to do it on the spot, I think I have a good enough answer in my head, but having this supporting collateral would be very useful in anyone's position. Like, for example, Mark, I messaged you, I think 2 nights ago, and I was like, help me come up with the use case off the top of my head for the healthcare space, because I get it. But when I'm speaking to somebody who's deeply involved in the industry, I was like, it really needs to makes sense.
And so you're like, okay. And I'm like, oh, you want to know a use case in healthcare? Well, okay. So,
Yes, that's where you come in, and we're very thankful to have you. And
so the audience, someone was probably thinking she was going to get 3 or 4 bullet points as far as, just really the big part of it. And I'm like, that's great for brevity, but it doesn't really, give the full, kind of gist of the process environment and how big these are. And specifically within healthcare, because it's commonly known that 20 cents of every healthcare dollar is lost through uncontrollable, or as they would say, fraud, waste, and abuse. And most of that fraud, waste, and abuse is predicated upon this very frictioned, difficult data sharing environment, which is hamstrung by the data privacy, by HIPAA and PHI, to where it's like, yeah, the two of us need to align up, but I cannot show you what is on my piece of paper to see that it lines up with what happens on your piece of paper. We've got to play this game of go fish, back and forth until we're finally aligned up, because that's the way that we're that's the medium in which we operate. And they pretty much say, and there's really no other way around it. And they've tried different, other methods of saying, okay, well, let's try and go away from paper and start using EDI. But even EDI, you just basically put it more digital and less physical. The data privacy still exists, and you still have within healthcare a huge cottage industry of businesses that run these huge call centers to just push this paper. And it's still being done even in the 21st century, done in paper, just because that's the way that it's been done. Is it the most efficient? No, but it's the most familiar, and so we just kind of have to just soldier along that way, because so many solutions come in and want us to buy something new to kind of bridge that gap. And that still doesn't address the compliance issue, and it doesn't address the security privacy. But when the real issue is that out of sync data, and how can we sync it, and and do it in a manner that preserves the privacy, the compliance, and the business practices, baseline. And I've seen no other competing solution to make it happen. Not just in claims adjudication, but if you start looking at large clinical trials, to where everybody not only needs to be kept anonymized because of their identity as patients within the trial, but you have to keep it all fairly under wraps, because you don't want competitors getting wind of, hey, these people are working on this type of molecule for this type of therapeutic treatment. We're going to start working on it too. Plus, clinical trials, you've got all these people that have to be, you've got to recruit, new trial participants, and hope they stay with the program, in the 18 to 21 months or even longer that it takes to have all of this. That's the problem. You have these attrition rates, and they may be sending notices and instructions to people that dropped off 3 months ago, because they have no idea, that this person dropped off. Again, wouldn't it be great if you had the environment to where you had that data sharing that preserved all the privacy and all the compliance and all the competitive positions? Baseline, that's it.
yes, and with that, Taylor, as someone who works for a company that actually offers services and a product around the baseline protocol or related to, what kind of questions or talking points do you see? Questions do people have, or talking points are you prepared with when you get questions about what the protocol does and the benefits of it to these companies?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going in pretty open-ended, right? So you're always starting with someone who doesn't necessarily have an understanding of what baseline actually has to offer. So you have to understand a little more about their pain points and what they're struggling with. So, there's a few different ways to approach it, right? I think it's just, it depends on the contact that you have, depending on the department that they're in, and how technical you can get with explaining what we're actually doing here and what value we're bringing. But most of the time, it just takes a little bit of patience and understanding to the individual that we're working with. And then from there, it's growing the reach internally and kind of expanding, what we're trying to do when it comes to synchronizing these business processes. So a little meta there, but like overall, it's just having a conversation.
Awesome. And Mark, that doc you sent me with the healthcare use case, did you already have that, or did you type that up in the last day?
The first parts of it, yes. The scenarios that I gave you, from Grace, the billing coordinator for the healthcare payer, and then Robin, the billing coordinator from the healthcare provider. Those are two counterparties that basically have to align up with all the different data fields and coding taxonomies and all the other little nuts and bolts of having to adjudicate a claim. These two, basically, it takes about 45 days for them just to get aligned so that they can then, move forward. And that is because of the data privacy, compliance problems. And saying, they could actually align up, within a matter of seconds using baseline. So yes, the ones on, and then the clinical trial, those are all straight from my product announcements from the future, because I've been kind of a nut for the healthcare angle for this for quite a while. Was the same way with blockchain, because everybody started to really kind of make a mad dash toward the financial services and payments and cross-border stuff. And I'm like, how come no one's paying attention to some of the other industries like healthcare and stuff? And they're like, I don't know. I grew up in banking, so that's what I know. So I'm like, well, let's start looking at other places to where there's actually a real need for this. Yeah, a lot of that I assembled from a basket of stuff that I have had together. I didn't start writing on a clean sheet of paper. So I'd love to be able to tell you that, but no. A lot of that was drawing upon the knowledge that I had done earlier.
Amazing. Well, thank you. And I know it's not official yet, but we were in talks about you curating similar pieces for a grant or just for the community in general to just spitfire baseline related to certain use cases or just updates, and we can get some good pieces on our blog, hopefully bi-weekly.
That's what we want to do. Is I want to sit there and focus on real world applications for baseline. What is it going to do to make your job better, or at least make it suck less? And again, and it's gonna the three pillars of why anybody wants to innovate anyway is to make money, save money, or stay out of trouble. And so baseline is probably the simplest, without having to invest in a lot of different infrastructure or reconfigure a cloud cluster and maintain it and all this. Why try and introduce so much new complexity when you don't really have to?
Mm-hmm.
So again, boring is the new sexy, as John Wolpert loves to say. And I'm like, and when I explain baseline to a lot of people, they say it can't be that easy, and I'm like, why? They're like, well, just because I've never heard of it being that easy. And I'm like, well, that's why I'm trying to tell you about it now. There's a lot of stuff that you haven't heard of before. It can't be that easy. Yes, it is. So, and it's really kind of, a shift from, a lot of those of us that are blockchain veterans, where, people said, I want a blockchain. And that contemplated, like, I want to rip and replace what I've got now so I can have this new cool blockchain. And I'm like, have you really thought that through? And we come to find out, as a lot of us had put together a lot of different projects, we could not demonstrate that we could make blockchain outperform the current environment and do it cost effectively. And so start looking at a different way around this and started using blockchain as middleware, as that root of trust, not that single source of truth. So, because we only need to prove stuff. So let's not try and introduce all this new, thought into it when it's not really required. I mean, synchronization within multi-party, especially external counterparties, has been a nut everyone's been trying to crack for, for 30, 40 years now. So, and I think we're at the cusp of actually doing it. So many people have heard so many pie in the sky stuff that we're like, you know, and I'm like, no, this actually has legs. And it is built on, you know, a big body of work that we know now doesn't work. Or it's too costly, or it's just impractical. We want people to use their existing systems, use their existing privacy, use their existing business logic. You know, we don't want to have to make you relearn everything. This is just use what you're doing it, and we're able to prove, you know, in the background that yes, you are synchronized.
Mm-hmm. And on the healthcare topic, I just sent the article in chat as well, but did you see the Cointelegraph article about using NFTs for genes? GENE, not the blue ones, but have you seen that article, Mark Haddle?
I have not seen it yet, but it makes me kind of sit there. I'm like, NFTs. Okay, well, what can we get into here, you know, on NFTs? And I need to see, you know, what is it that you need as far as for genetic or genomics companies that you need to actually have that as a tokenized asset, giving it singularity and permanence. And who maintains custody of it? I imagine it would be the patient, and that they can then share it, you know, and, you know, to what level they want to share it. You know, it gives them that self-sovereignty function and stuff. But no, I haven't read the article, so I'm not going to get too deep in it yet. But my first thing is I'm like, NFTs in, okay, in genomics? Interesting. I mean, are we doing it just to say, hey, let's add the sexiness of NFTs, you know, because it's gotten a lot of buzz right now. And we want to kind of glom some of that onto something as, you know, kind of high level as genomics. It's not really something you can really talk to somebody while waiting at a bus stop and keep them engaged.
To try.
Might scare them away.
It might.
I mean, they may be willing to talk to you if you have the sexiness of NFTs.
Yes,
For them, a POAP.
A POAP. Bored Ape Genomics.
Did you read this article, Sonal? Do you know?
I did not. I didn't read it all yet. I read some of it. I know it was related to being
You know,
able
the basis of this?
not fully. But I know the intent is for the patients or the people themselves to have the control of their gene data versus companies. So I'm not exactly sure what their ideas and intents were, but I thought it was interesting, and I will have to look back at it.
Just like tokenizing your
I think it's a way.
lineage.
I think it's a way to tie your DNA to a token that allows you to capitalize on when different companies request your information.
Different companies, like ones that are interested in comparing your DNA to other DNA or results.
Sort of, yeah, like healthcare companies, if they need your specific gene data.
So instead of like a genetic company like 23andMe holding all my information, I can just hold it, and if they need it, I'll be like, that'll be $10 each time.
Yeah, a little
Can I
reverse,
do that?
changing up the data game.
Well, you know, and a lot of people were sitting here. I mean, and again, if you're going to NFT your genomics and stuff, that's still going to, if you share it to someone, you know, like a company, they are then bound by HIPAA and PHI because, you know, it is not you, you know, so they are actually, you know, have care, custody, and control of your identifiable health data. And so they're going to have to exercise that care and control over that custody. And so it's one of those, and you know, the fact that it's an NFT and not a PDF or something like that doesn't change anything. So yeah, there's going to be some operational risk management, governance, risk, and um, and control aspects that need to be fleshed out on it. But it's interesting. I mean, if you're doing genomics, I mean, think of what, you can pretty much NFT anything to where you can tokenize it, and then you can then exchange it, barter it, lend off of it, all the other stuff. But I don't see if I could find anybody that would want to buy my genomics. Oh, well, wrong. Never mind. I'm going to walk that back. There's going to be probably some that really want to know your health data. And if it came from you, they at least have an excuse should, the HIPAA police start sniffing around and stuff. But
I've been trying to buy your data for years, Mark.
Of course they are. Of course they are. I tell everybody, if you're not paying for a product and you're using it all the time, you are the product. That's what Facebook and that's what, all the social media channels are. I'm like, you don't pay a dime. They are aggregating all of your movement and all of your thoughts and, all of that stuff to try and, really kind of get a high level view and some predictability about somebody like you. What might they do next? So that's where you're starting to kind of get, the move toward the self-sovereignty aspect to say, I want to control my data and how it's shared. And that was a really kind of a big feature of verified credentials. And you're starting to see a lot of the big tech companies are really trying to kind of halt the development or at least slow the development of these verified credentials because it is a threat to that data-driven economy of theirs. So again, for baseline, it's one of those where, you keep your data. We just want to be able to say that, yes, we are at least synchronized up without revealing anything. And that's kind of a big thing that you're getting a lot of people, when you explain all this, is around the whole zero knowledge aspect, because so many people just, as human beings, how can you convince someone, or how can I be convinced without somebody showing it to me? It's like, show me the money, show me this, wait a minute, that can't be real. Here it is. And so a lot of people are like going, how can I do something through zero knowledge? And so you have to kind of not get too deep on that. But I say, the zero knowledge will create a fingerprint of each data set and then compare the fingerprints. So it's not moving anything out of there, it's comparing the fingerprints. That's the simplest explanation that I've had some success with.
Yeah, well, I mean, like everybody nowadays, they already accept that all their information that's in the hands of whatever entity that they've signed up with is protecting their information in some way, right? Mm-hmm. So I think to make that leap to be like, oh, now that this is zero knowledge, I don't trust it. It's like, well, I don't know, my data is probably leaked all the time by random entities already. So if I'm going to move over to a system where it's like, okay, maybe I still don't know exactly how it works, but at the very least, they're saying that there's going to be less transference of that data and they're going to keep it in a legacy system of like, it can't get worse, right? Like it's going to be the same or it's got to be better, right?
Yeah, it can't get any worse. But I mean, a lot of people though, I think are just unaware at really how much data that they, just leak, just through going through the motions day in, day out in their internet, internet movements and stuff like that. I don't think they really understand how much of that they're actually sharing. And I say that because I don't see all the outrage out there, because I think a lot of people, if they truly knew about this, would get really, really concerned, even, pretty much pissed off pretty quickly, saying, whoa, wait a minute. You mean my new iPhone or my new Android Galaxy, just the default factory settings open all the floodgates to my personal data, and I'm just, spreading this all over and had no idea.
Yeah, that's how we should start out our baseline pitch from now on, just going through like the largest data leaks. I know you have some memorized, right?
Yeah, we can just like reveal the passwords of the clients we're pitching to. Just be like, so these have been out for a while. I don't know if you need that or not. Here's your home address. Here's your social security.
We hacked you. This is why you need baseline.
Yeah. If you had baseline, I wouldn't have been able to hack you, but because you didn't. It was actually kind of easy. That's the pitch.
Oh, now I can hack you because I have baseline or because you have baseline?
No, I
think that's
can't
any-
hack you.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah, can't hack.
Yeah, now
Well-
I cannot.
Well, and I think it's more that now that you're baseline, you can't hack me any more than you could have originally because we still maintain
Right.
the original.
Yeah.
So
And definitely a little less probably too. I can hack you less.
but we're not trying to, that's not a problem that we're trying to solve. It's the, people that do not want their data in motion because, that's where the leakage happens, and all the security guys, they're like, hey, I'll take data at rest any day because those are easy to, I can put a fence around it. But when it's starting to move, and especially moving outside my walls and my moat, that's where I get really nervous.
Yeah, and that's the simple equation explanation to people, right? It's like if you have a baseline implementation, then what percentage of data is going from what was previously in motion to now permanently at rest.
Mhm.
And that itself just equates to how much more overall security, so on and so forth.
Mhm.
Maybe that's how we should pitch it. It's like, even if you can't trust the ZKP, you already know that this is not leaving your system, right? So
Right. And again, there's a lot of philosophical things that everybody talks about and everything. And I'm like, with baseline, guys, let's just keep it simple. The whole KISS principle, keep it simple, stupid. This keeps it simple.
Actually, that's a really interesting point that we should take note of for the research group. Is that could be a whole area of focus within itself, is studying how often data in motion is the cause for security attacks or the entry point. But that angle would be really interesting to have concrete facts around.
yeah, I mean, I'm not a security analyst or anything, but I would wager to say that either, data already in motion or really it's eliciting the motion of data is like the most common thing. Like you're not like hacking into the mainframe of some legacy system that's deep inside a company.
You got 3 people sharing a keyboard.
Well, and yeah, 3 people sharing a keyboard and stuff like that. But the weird thing is when you start looking at a lot of the different, kind of the postmortems of a lot of these data breaches, I mean, those things will, raise your eyebrows and really kind of sit there and go, what? Mainly because they're like, well, yeah, we had a breach and we've isolated where the initial entry point was. We didn't discover it for 4 months. And that person had been in there walking around unfettered, into our entire architecture. And we didn't find out, we weren't even aware until 4 months before we could even think about doing any type of remediation. That's what they call the day 0 attacks. That's the, incurred but not reported. The day 0 attacks. They're like, yes, you have been accessed. And, my background's in risk management, and I used to do a lot of the insurance quoting and stuff for data breach liability and cyber liability. And, it's just amazing at how much, exposure is out there, and people just have no idea of how big it is or really how bad it is. But you come to find out that, wait a minute, the breach happened. We didn't find out about it for 4 months. That's almost like, hey, I went out of town for 4 months, and I turned the faucet on in my sink and, put the drain on, and I just left it. When you come back 4 months later, you're gonna have a big water bill, and you're gonna have, a house flooded. So
We should get some security architects on our new podcast.
oh, if you want to bring a threat hunter, those guys. Bring some threat hunters, because the big problem, and it makes so many security guys so frustrated is security, cybersecurity, and all of that is by nature required to be defensive only. They're like, we cannot sit there and fire back. We can only sit there and just hunker down and lock the doors and shut everything down. That's the best we can do. We can't actually go out and disable somebody, because then that's liability. So that's why you have these threat hunters, because they're all like, well, we need to know what it looks like when it shows up, outside of our walls. That's the thing that they get into, because they're like, and that's why data in motion always makes them nervous, because I can't go out there and do something offensive, proactively. I have to always be reactive and defensive. So that's what they're all upset about. I mean, most of us, if someone's trying to break into our apartment or something, we're like, yeah, come on, bring it. But they're not. And I'm going to go catch you. Can't do that.
Bring it. My apartment is baselined.
Yeah, bring it. My apartment's
You're not getting in.
No, it's going to be like my apartment. This apartment's baselined. I'm going to go find another one. That was the whole idea. That was the whole thing behind. You ever remember the club? It was that little thing that you put on your steering wheel to kind of deter, thieves, car thieves. You'd have the club. Those things can be defeated in like 10 seconds. But the idea was to basically say, hey, go find one that doesn't have one. This is going to be a little bit more of a pain in the rear end, than you bargained for. Go find one that's not. So that's why people got the club, because it's like, hey, I want to make it impractical.
So you're saying baseline protocol is like a club? Is that what you're saying? Is that,
No.
Is that the metaphor there? Oh, it's like a deterrent, an extreme deterrent for malicious actors.
Baseline is supposed to make your security guys feel better, because that data remains at rest. Instead of in motion. There are so many native capabilities and advantages of baseline. And that's what we, in this blog series, to kind of go full circle with Sonal's thing, is to make everybody aware that, hey, did you think about this? Because so much of that stuff is because I don't know what the other guy is thinking, and I don't want him to know what I'm thinking, but we still have to have a business relationship, and we still have to interact and transact. So how can I make that, as less risky as possible and as comfortable as possible? Oh, and I don't have a big budget to buy a whole bunch of, servers or, set up and run a KH cluster, for my cloud,
Yeah, we should get some security experts on a show one day.
Yeah, I think I have some connects.
Oh,
maybe in the government. I think I know a guy who runs a security podcast already, so maybe we invite him on ours and then we got his.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Yeah.
But I'd like to go back to, were you going to end the call, Sono? I'd like to go back to, I think Mark with a C, you had a good tagline. It was something about like, oh, I don't remember anything from my life before.
Yeah, I don't remember what my life was like before I baselined.
My life or wife?
Life.
Oh, okay.
I don't remember what my life was like before then. Again, a lot of you guys are a little bit younger and you're not parents yet. You will understand once you become parents. You're like, I don't remember my life before I had a kid. Again.
Yeah, I like that. I like that.
Totally different.
Let's workshop it a little bit in this last 2 minutes.
Sure.
Instead of I don't remember my life was like before, we can also be like, I thought I loved my wife until I met the baseline protocol. No?
Love my life, not my wife. I thought I loved.
I know. I'm saying wife.
It's really pushing the wife agenda here. I think.
Yeah, slippery slope there. Literally, it is one of those type of sea changes. Because again, everybody's like, "Wait a minute, is it that simple?" I'm like, "Yeah, it is." Quit trying to put all this different stuff in on there, because people are going, well, yeah, you can baseline, and once you baseline, then you can start minting NFTs, and you can start doing your smart contracts, and you can do all this, and I'm like, guys, hold on. Let's get baseline first. They want to do some downstream functionality afterwards, sure. And baseline sets the stage and has the plumbing to where that is that's possible. So, if you want to tokenize, if you want to start doing smart contracts, by all means. But let's sit there and take care of what needs to be taken care of first, and it's that out of sync data, that multi-party data sharing.
Yeah, Yoav, we should start clipping some of these streams and getting these quotes saved and posting
here's
them.
one.
But
We need Redbubble to just like read through the transcript and auto generate mugs with all of the cattle quotes.
Oh, all of my little folksy, homespun corn pone theory type stuff. Yeah, I've got a million.
Well, this was a lot of fun. Our first podcast, it gave us a reason to try and tie things together full circle with this podcast pressure, but this was a lot of fun. Thank you all for
more.
Yeah, let's hear it.
My children were the most important thing to me in life. And then the baseline protocol was born.
Amazing.
Soundbite.
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, we'll clip that on a
Now
t-shirt.
Let's cut it over live.
Yeah, we won't do that one live. And I actually had one that I just kind of put the brakes on one day where I was like, no, I can't say that.
All right.
He can say anything if you just text it to him real quick.
Yeah. All right. Thank you all so much for joining us live or tuning in. And next week, Boris Breslov, our baseline community member from JP Morgan, who is currently at Lendit FinTech in New York, will be joining us to give us a brief on what he learned at the event. And he's there talking all about baseline to some finance folks. So looking forward to that. All right. Thank you all and have a great rest of your week.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Goodbye.